Well, good evening, you beautiful New Zealanders. We're in for another great video today. And what are we going to look at? Well, in this video, I'm going to be explaining what the letter to King Charles from the Maori leaders was really all about. It's not what you think. I'm going to be explaining how Kiwis need to wise up about Maori activists and the tactics they use to get what they want. And number three, I'm going to explain how activists misunderstand the power of the king to come running to their aid. And number four, the one thing the Maori activists have never been able to do. So let's enjoy this. First up, the King Charles has no legal mandate to interfere in the affairs of New Zealand. We need to get that right. He's just a figurehead. If you like, he's the ceremonial head of our country. He possesses no power to tell the government what to do or not to do. Our Governor-General, Dame Cindy Kiro, represents the King. She too possesses no power to tell the government what to do or not to do. Maori don't understand this. So what is likely to happen when King Charles opens the letter from the Maori leaders? First up, well, at best he might communicate with the Dame and ask for her opinion. At worst, he might yawn and just bin the letter. That's probably what he's going to do. What's important to realise is that he can't interfere directly in the affairs of New Zealand. So what's the letter really all about? It's about shaming people. That's what it's about. Maori want to embarrass the present government on the international stage. And why would they do this? They want to control our MPs, particularly Luxon. They want Luxon and co to cave in to Maori demands. Essentially, activists are saying to Luxon and co, if you don't do what we want, we will do things which will embarrass you in our country internationally. If you don't want us to embarrass you, then do what we want and do what we say. So what is it that they are doing? Well, it's heavy manipulation. That's what it is. They're manipulating our parliament as best they can. Activists employ various strategies to get what they want. For example, bullying, intimidation, threat. In this letter to King Charles, they use the "we'll shame you" strategy. We could think of what they did in other ways too. They are like kids going to the teacher telling tales on other kids. That's what they're doing. So how do they want Luxon and co to react? Well, they're hoping the MPs will react by saying to themselves, oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing. I don't want this to happen again, so I'd better do what the activists want. The best thing to do is appease them so they don't do it again. See how it works? It's manipulation. So what are the activists complaining about? This is where it really gets interesting. The complaints. The new coalition government elected in October 14, 2023 has promised to attack Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the rights of our whānau, the letter said. Now, I've put the letter in the description of this video so you can read the whole thing for yourself. But this is parts of what the letter said. It said, citing the redefining of the treaty principles, careless mining of land in the seabed, the denial of property rights regarding water, geothermal and minerals, greater powers to take our children and abuse in state care, changes which make it difficult for our people to enter critical professions including medicine, discouraging the use of te reo, and the reduction of rights to participate in local and central government. Well, those are the big 7 complaints that they have. So let's examine each of these 7 complaints one at a time. This is what the king is going to have to deal with. You know, a good place to start is with the actual treaty. The treaty only has 5 parts. It has a preamble, and Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and the affirmation, and that's it. I put the text of the treaty in the description of this video so you can read it for yourself. The treaty is remarkably simple and easy to understand. It's only been made complicated by the activists trying to make it say what it does not say. That's why it's become complicated. That's the only reason. So here's a summary of the 5 parts of the treaty. In the preamble, the British agreed to set up a government that is a democracy. They imported democracy here. Article 1. Maori agreed to cede sovereignty. Article 2. The British agreed to protect Maori in the ownership of their land, dwellings and property. And Article 2, the second thing the British agreed to do was they agreed to buy Maori land. Then we moved to Article 3. The British agreed to grant Maori British citizenship. And then the affirmation, the chief said they fully understood what they were signing up to. Have the British done what they agreed to? Emphatically, absolutely yes. In light of this, let's examine the complaints in the letter to King Charles. So we'll go back to the complaints. Here are the complaints. But the new coalition government elected on the 14th of October 2023 has promised to attack Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the rights of our whānau, the letter said. Oh, really? Well, let's have a look at this. The only rights given to Maori in the treaty were those given to all British citizens. Maori have no special rights in the treaty. Maori today only talk of their rights. But what about the responsibilities in the treaty? Well, there are lots of those, the main one being to submit to and obey the government. This is what ceding sovereignty meant. David Seymour, duly elected by the people of New Zealand, represents the government. So by opposing David, activists are opposing the government. Yeah? And when they do this, they are therefore breaching the treaty. You might say, but, they're only engaging in peaceful protest. Isn't that acceptable in a democracy? The answer, yes, absolutely. It's okay to have peaceful protest. But today's activists don't want to just voice their opinion. They want to set up a dual government in opposition to the democratically elected government. A remarkably similar situation occurred in New Zealand's history roughly 1860 to 1880. Remember that? Kingi-Tunga movement wanted to create an alternative government. How did the British deal with this situation back then? It was treason. That's what it was. They treated it as treason. And it ought to be treated the same way today. But no, our leaders are too weak. Yeah, that's what the problem is. Activists call their push for an alternative government Tino Rangatiratanga, or self-determination. Therefore, their protests are not simply the voice of opposition. No, they are the actions of treasonous. They are therefore breaching the treaty. How? They are reneging on Article 1 of the treaty, where the chiefs agreed to cede sovereignty. You know what? Today's activists are actually trashing their elders, the 540 chiefs who signed the treaty in 1840. That's what they're doing. They're not honouring the treaty, they're dishonouring it, and they're dishonouring their leaders. That is to say, in the treaty, the chiefs in 1840 agreed to come under and submit to the British government. Maori today want an alternative government. That's treason. That's what it is. The second complaint they have is, activists tell the king that the coalition in government is redefining the treaty principles. Well, what are we to make of this? The answer is, the public service and the courts, both stacked with activists over the past 50 years, have defined the principles. But really, it's Parliament that ought to have defined them. Does the government have the right to define the principles? Absolutely. They're the government, for heaven's sake. They're the ultimate authority, not the courts or the public service. The courts and the public service are not elected, but the government is, so the government should be doing this. Furthermore, the current principles of the treaty, if you like, the old principles, those that existed before David Seymour introduced his principles, you know what? They don't reflect the true meaning and intent of the treaty. Rightly, David Seymour wants to address this. The current principles literally invite fraud and corruption. Contrary to what the activists claim, David is not changing the treaty. He is simply returning New Zealand to the original true meaning of this treaty. That's what he's doing. Think about it. Why would activists object so strongly to a return to truth? Well, you know the answer. It can only be that the activists are finding that the old principles were serving them just nicely. They were opening the door for fraud and corruption like there was no tomorrow, and they were loving them. That's why they hate David's principles treaty so badly. The third complaint, well, they're talking about careless mining of the land and seabed. Oh, really? See, Maori activists like to portray themselves as amazing conservationists, but are they? According to historian Dr. Matthew Wright, Maori were responsible for the extinction of 35 species prior to 1840. They're not conservationists. This is what he says. Historian Dr. Matthew Wright reports on Maori and their impact on the environment prior to European contact. He says around 35 species became extinct during the period. By comparison, 11 species are known to have become extinct since 1840. So what's he saying? He's saying, look, Maori had no concern for conservation. They didn't even know the meaning of the word. For them, pre-1840, if it moved, it was protein to be eaten. Anything, including people, I might add. Of course, it's highly unlikely that King Charles will know all this. The fourth complaint, the denial of property rights regarding water, geothermal and minerals. Well, really? As I have said over and over in this video channel, all Maori were promised in the treaty were protection over the ownership of their land, dwellings and property, as at the 6th of February 1840. The fact remains they went on to sell 92% of their land in the decades following 1840. There is absolutely nothing in the treaty about Maori being promised perpetual ownership of minerals, water, geothermal in New Zealand. This is simply what I call Maori activist fantasy talk. That's what it is. It's just pure fantasy. Yep. The fifth complaint, they say greater powers to take our children and abuse in state care. Oh really? They say that the government has now got greater powers to take our children. And then they state abuse in state care. Well, this is alluding to the government passing an act which allowed the government to place children who are in dangerous, unsafe homes into safe, loving homes, regardless of the ethnicity of the foster parents in those loving homes. But Maori said, no, we want Maori children in Maori homes. Well, there's a really big problem with this. The problem with this is that 88% of the children in state care are from Maori homes. So what's the point of taking Maori children out of abusive Maori homes and putting them back in other abusive Maori homes? Now there's a graphic that's just arrived on the screen. That comes from a Maori organisation called Maoris or something. And it says Maori are shockingly overrepresented in the child abuse statistics. Maori children are twice as likely as other groups to be subjected to child abuse, and over half of the children killed through maltreatment in New Zealand are Maori. Now, I don't know why they want to advertise that in big, beautiful graphics. What they're wanting is they want us to say, oh, poor Maori, let's give them more money. That's what it's about. Maori top the stats when it comes to child abuse. As for Maori abuse in state care, this is historical Maori abuse in state care situations. Maori were disproportionately put in state care because Maori were not caring for their own. See, where are all the Maori leaders talking about this, how to fix up Maori not looking after their own kids? Where are the leaders talking about that? They're not. The Maori leaders who wrote to the king won't tell the king all this, of course, about all this abuse and Maori overrepresented in child abuse. And of course, Maori blame it on somebody else. It's somebody else's fault that Maori children are being abused in Maori homes. Well, whose fault is it? Come on. The sixth complaint, they say changes which make it difficult for our people to enter critical professions, including medicine. Oh my goodness, this is just more activist fantasy talk. Reviewing medical school and entry criterion, Minister of Health Shane Reddy recently said, the Maori in the Pacific admission scheme sees 30% of entries into the Faculty of Medical and Health Science allocated to Maori and Pacifica students. Well, there it is. Look, exact opposite of what they've said in this letter to the king. And there's the reference. So what planet are the Maori on when they wrote to the king about this issue? Oh my goodness, it's just more fantasy. Well, the seventh complaint they have is that the government is discouraging the use of te reo, they say. Well, once again, this is Maori activist fantasy talk. Why? Is there any law prohibiting anyone from speaking Maori? No. Are Maori allowed to speak Maori anywhere, anytime? Yes. Is anyone stopping them? No. So what are the Maori leaders really saying? They are saying that they want everyone speaking Maori, and the government is not moving fast enough to make this happen. Well, the truth of the matter is activists want to force the Maori language on everyone. Why? To groom the country, to groom you and I, getting us all ready for tribal rule. That is the truth. You know what? This is the politics of grooming. That's what's going on here. The eighth complaint, they say, to the king, that the government is reducing Maori rights to participate in local and central government. Once again, this is Maori activist fantasy talk. Why? Is there any law prohibiting Maori from standing for local or central government? No. Is there anything in the treaty giving Maori special rights to participate in local and central government? No. So to give them special rights would be a breach of the treaty. So what are they on about? Maori want the privilege, the say and the pay which goes with being an MP or a local body councillor without doing all the work which is required to be elected. That is, things like campaigning, putting up billboards, designing flyers, phoning people, door knocking, networking. They don't want to do all that. They just want the job without the effort. The eighth complaint, is there anything stopping Maori from being elected for central or local government? Answer, no. So why don't they stand? Like I said, they want to be gifted the seat and not have to work for it. So let's summarize. On one level, this letter to King Charles is just a media stunt. That is all it is. But it's much more than this, as I've said. There are 8 complaints, and all of them have been found to be without substance. They are all activist fantasy talk. The one thing activists have never been able to do is prove their case using facts. There's no facts in this letter to the king. They're all just opinions, opinions, opinions. The main reason for the letter was to embarrass Luxon and the coalition on the world stage. They want to embarrass him in the hope that he will respond by continuing to appease them. So far, he's been our soft touch for Maori activists, appeasing them at every turn. This is because Luxon is a closet activist, and we know that. Okay, that's enough for today's video. Thank you. Don't forget to keep getting our business cards out. They're really working, and we're getting good orders on those, people getting those out around the country. To get these cards, just email that email address there. They're only 3 cents each plus courier to get them to. Don't forget also, please get some of these booklets. The Psychology of Takeover, 19 Strategies Maori Activists Are Using to Try and Take Over New Zealand. This booklet's 80 pages long and they're only $3. We're just basically selling them at cost. So if you truly want to understand what's going on in New Zealand and you want to be a help, this booklet is the key which will truly help you get it, if you know what I mean. You can order this book by emailing that same email address. Also, please, we have a few thousand of our original Stop Co-Governance booklets left over from our tour in 2023. You'll remember we printed 550,000 of these. We got to about a third of the households in New Zealand. Well, these are now free. I want you to get that, please. They're free. So all you need to do is pay for the courier to get them to you. We will just get them to you and you can get as many as you like. You can order this book by emailing the same email address, cards@stopcogovernance.kiwi. And our new thing is a bumper sticker. Whoa, New Zealand's identity is under threat. First, the activists have and are still trying to change the name of New Zealand to Aotearoa. We must oppose this. Second, Maori sovereignty flags are appearing more and more around the place. So we've developed a bumper sticker which came from one of you guys, one of our supporters. So we've printed some awesome bumper stickers and there it is. Look, it's so cool. I love it. These measure 21 centimeters by 6.5 centimeters. They're $3 plus courier and packaging to get them to you. They're cheap. You can order these bumper stickers by emailing the same email address. We'd love to see absolutely everybody with one of these on their bumper sticker on the back of their car. That'd be great. So you can get them from ordering at cards@stopcogovernance.kiwi. As usual, guys, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Thank you so much for those chipping in financially. This is a huge help. You guys are absolutely awesome. See you next time.